Before we make dinner together tonight, I'd like to thank Endel for sponsoring today's video. This is legitimately one of my favorite apps on my phone. I use it all the time, and I'm not alone in this. This was the Apple Watch App of the Year for 2020. I want you to click the link below the video and get this app on your phone. Here's why. I'm an entrepreneur and I work through my days at 100 miles an hour, but this can lead to some disordered thoughts, lack of focus, lack of motivation, kind of a hard time relaxing after all of it, and Endel helps that. They use patented sound technology to create soundscapes, and they adapt to things like weather, heart rate, location, and then they play a soundscape for me that's calm and relaxing to listen to. It is so helpful when it comes to focus. In fact, it's been shown to increase your focus 7 times. Lowered stress, ease going to sleep at night, sleeping better. The first 100 people to download Endel at the link below the video will get a free week of audio experience. So go click the link and get started. There was a Greek woman years ago on a very popular travel show called Parts Unknown. And this show was hosted by one of my very favorite people in the world that I never had the pleasure to meet, Anthony Bourdain. Anthony was traveling through Greece and he landed at the table of this wonderful woman who was feeding him. And then she sternly instructed him to focus less on what he ate and more on who he ate with. And I think this was so reflected in Parts Unknown and the travels that Anthony had around the world. He was interested in not some purity food culture, but in really sharing his table and sharing the bounty of wherever he was with amazing people, with great stories. She said to him, "Don't tell me what you ate. Tell me who you ate with." And I'll never forget that. On our little farm, I try to keep both what we're eating and who we're eating with at the top of the list. There's a lot of times when our table is filled to the brim with friends and children and family and neighbors, and then there are times when it's just our little family of 6 who just so happen to be the most important people in the world to me. One of my favorite tasks when it comes to filling the table this time of year is to not just fill it with nonsense, but to fill that table up with everything that we have labored so hard for. Right now, everything on the farm feels like a terrible labor. We've had record heats and we've hovered over 100 degrees for what feels like an eternity. We've had months straight with no rain, no clouds, and no break from it. The heat is almost assaulting in the open space of the market garden. But this is what we've worked so hard for. To have baskets spilling over with sweet peppers and cucumbers and basil and tomatoes and cabbage and corn and carrots and okra and squash and parsley and everything in between. It takes intention to focus on what one eats. It takes intention to grow it, to care for it, and then it takes intention to prepare it well for those people around the table that you want to share it with. Cooking food from scratch, especially food that you've grown, is a discipline indeed. Nothing comes in pretty little packages. I remember this kind of being a stark discovery when we first started growing our food. I was used to little plastic containers that could stack in the refrigerator. That's not so on the farm. Everything is dirty and everything requires effort. And it's that beautiful and horrible time of year when it feels like the kitchen will never be good and truly clean again. But wow, this is beautiful, isn't it? What we're eating is very important to me, and tonight I really want to celebrate all of our hard work in the growing season. So tonight, for my favorite people who will join me at the table, we're making some roasted sun gold cherry tomatoes with white beans, chili, olive oil, sea salt, and black pepper. There's no recipe for this, just a quick throwing together in the pan before drizzling with some balsamic and popping in the oven. We'll also be making some grilled salmon flatbreads with a miso salad of cabbage, carrots, cucumbers, and parsley. There is hardly a flavor that I love more than miso. I'll make sure to post the recipe below for this dressing that I use on practically everything. In fact, you could put this on a tire and it might taste delicious. But in this instance, it's purple shredded cabbage, shredded sweet carrots, shallot, parsley, and cucumber. And of course, a nice sparkling wine to cool the thirst always makes the occasion of sitting down with my beautiful family at our table all the more celebratory. Next up are the flatbreads. This is a recipe I created years ago for my book on celebrating the seasons called Seasons at the Farm. I should have it memorized by now, really, because I make it all the time, but I'll make sure to stick that recipe below the video too if you'd like to make yourself some. There's hardly a more welcome dish on the table than a plate full of hot, buttery, chewy flatbreads to wrap around all this garden goodness. The basis of the recipe is quite simple. I use all-purpose einkorn flour because that's the flour I use for almost everything. Some honey, some yeast, some salt, warm water, and then just knead it together. Now, ideally, once these flatbreads are rolled out, they would be cooked out on a grill. That's where they're the most delicious and they get the biggest, bubbliest, pita-like texture. But a great alternative when it's so hot that you can't possibly go outside to grill is to simply cook them in a dry cast iron skillet over medium-high heat. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, I have some salmon cooking kind of low and slow in the oven just with salt and olive oil. Everything needs basil this time of year. Everything. Get Georgia to do almost any chore if she knows that there's going to be bread at the end. When I was a young girl, we had corn in the summer a lot, and it was always my job to shuck the corn. Of course, my grandpa would send me outside where it wouldn't make nearly as much of a mess in the kitchen. And last but not least, some forgotten sweet peppers for our salad. Isn't this beautiful? A table full of not only delicious food that we want to eat, but a table full of people that we want to eat it with. I know that this is rare. I know that this is special. I don't take it for granted. This is my happiest place in the entire world. Also, in case you're wondering, yes, I do have to wash the tablecloth after every meal, and it's still worth it.